morning. Just get this. There we go. Okay. Looks like Sanjay's having a little bit of trouble getting in, and I'll put my camera on. There we go. How's everybody this morning? Good? Good, thanks, Leanne. Can you do me a favor? When I talk, if I just talk at this level, do you hear me okay? Okay, so I don't have to talk any louder than this. All right, great. Tell me if for some reason it's not loud enough. Okay. I'm trying to figure out to lower my voice a little bit so I save it. I tend to talk in the mic like I talk to a big classroom, and so I probably don't have to do that. Okay. But I've also got this mic that it's very good at not picking up background sounds, so sometimes I feel like I have to talk louder. Yeah, good morning, Giancarlo. Oh, a bunch of people coming now. Okay. All right, let everybody in. Okay, so today we're going to do what we were trying yesterday in the lab when we were looking at that updating and sort of recovery process, the direct method. Well, now we're going to actually do it and practice it in MS Project. And so you know that file that I put up yesterday. I think yesterday I called it lecture 5 discussion. I changed the name because I don't know why I said lecture 5. It was lecture 4. So I changed the name to lecture and lab 4 discussion. So it's under the lectures tab in Blackboard. It's that bathroom example that we were looking at yesterday. So if you go to Blackboard and you look at the maybe I'll just so I know what I'm explaining here. So if you go to Blackboard and you go to the lectures tab, you will see at the bottom, it'll say lecture 4A and 4B, direct method and recovery. I think that's the right one, or did I? Yeah, that's the right one. So lecture 4A and 4B, direct method and recovery. So download that, and we'll use that as our start point file. So you could just follow along so we don't have to, enter all the stuff again. And that because we did the resources and stuff last week. And if anybody has any questions too about adding the resources or things like from last week, feel free to ask. That's okay, because we're just playing around right now. And the more that you follow, the more it's going to click. And then I've uploaded under the labs tab where it says lab assignments, I've uploaded lab assignment 4. And so what we'll do is in lab assignment 4, we'll do a update and we'll do a recovery of the office project. But again, I've uploaded a start point file for you for that in the lab assignment. So use that as your start point. I've made I made a couple of things a little bit different in it because otherwise I've still got people handing in lab 3. So there's a few things that are a little bit different in it. So make sure you use the lab 4 start point file when we get there, but we're not there yet. We are at going through this bathroom example. So I'll just get these things going. So if you can get that loaded up and maybe when you get it load up, say that you've got it yet. No, I haven't corrected lab 2 yet, Rocco. I'm a little bit behind on a couple of things. The only one I've done is lab 1. So you should have your lab 1 mark unless it was late. If it was late, then I probably didn't get that either. So if it was late, then I didn't get that one. But I got lab 1 for everybody that was on time. Yeah, I think, 2 or 3 of you, well, maybe about 4 or 5 of you might have had lab 2 marked. That was just because you were probably really quick in handing it in, and when I was doing lab 1, it was there, so I just marked it. Yeah, no problem, Rocco.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Kevin. How
Uh,
are you doing?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
You know the file you have open right now? Which file is that one?
Okay,
The
so
bathroom.
yeah, good task. I just explained it, so but some people were joining at the same time, so there's probably about 9 or 10 people that didn't get that.
I opened the file. I opened the one with the lab 4 start file. Was that a
Yeah,
different one?
yes, this is a different one. So this one, if you go to in Blackboard to the lectures tab, not the labs tab, the lectures tab,
Okay.
and you go down to the bottom, it says lecture and lab for live discussion file. That's the one. So it says lecture and lab for live discussion file, applying
Oh,
direct method.
okay. I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like if I put it under the lab section, then people are going to confuse it for the lab assignment, I thought. So maybe I don't know what's
That's
easier.
okay. Thanks.
And this is the same one that we were looking at yesterday. So when I had you yesterday in the lecture, this is the same file. So a lot of you downloaded it when we did the discussion, or you were looking off somebody else's. Maybe they were sharing it when you did the discussion. But so this one has been updated for the one aspect, and it hasn't been. Let's see. I don't know. Did I recover this one? I don't think so. So if I go to the variant screen, it's not recovered yet. No. So what I'm going to do is go over some of the fundamentals of updating it. And maybe, you know what? Maybe it might be worth our while to, oh, maybe I'm just going to let a bunch more people in. So it might be worth our while to clear this out and to start again. And so this actually is pretty good because they'll show you how to do that, because some of you will be working on something and you'll want to undo something, but it won't let you undo. So we can go back and clear this part out perhaps. So right now these are showing, and for those of you that just joined us, this is the lab, the file that we were using yesterday. You'll find it under the lectures tab, and it's called lecture and lab 4 live discussion file. So it's under the lectures tab, not the lab tab. This is the one we looked at yesterday during the lecture. And so you can follow along if you download it. All right, so I've got this open. Let's say, for example, these are showing, these are showing as completed or at least started. And again, you might not want to zoom in a little bit that you could see it more by the day. So you can see this is kind of updated to here. And this is updated. Sometimes, by the way, you might find that it just stops a little short of the line. I wouldn't worry about that too much if you're updating it. Sometimes it's a little bit quirky how it updates things. But as long as it's like you're on a daily basis and it's pretty much to the line, these are good. But sometimes you might see a little bit of a slight space there. And I'm just going to shrink this for you. So I double click on the time scale, and then I can shrink this down. So maybe we can see a few more weeks in one screen, usually around 55%. There we go. Now we can see a little bit more. So I want to say that I want to zero these out. And of course, these in our tracking screen, we can see that what's showing actual start, actual finish, and percent complete. all right, and percent complete. So this one, because it's 2 of 3 days, it's probably 66.6% complete, 6666. And so it rounds it up to 67%. So that's why it's doing that. Even though this bar looks long, it's crossing a weekend, and that's non-working days. It's got 2 of the 3 days, so it did that. But if I just type in 0, it's going to undo that, right? So it's going to undo that and make that not done. I could also highlight all of these, and I could zero them out as well. So I could basically, with that, I could do it quickly. I could just go to the task tab and I could go 0. So I find this task tab really useful for the updating because of the mark on track and these quick sort of forms. So now that's zeroed out. All right. And I'm going to maybe move the status date for now over here. So I'm just going to move it for now over here. So to do that, I'm going to go project status date, and I wonder if I can just get rid of it. Let's see. I don't know. Yeah, it won't let me. I didn't think so. So I'm just going to move it back. I'm just going to move it back to, this is starting. So this is going to be starting on the 2nd. Okay. So I'm just moved that back there, that line. So that we've got that there. All right. And what I'm going to do is you see where it says set baseline? See, it says set baseline last saved on a particular day. So I'm under the project tab here. If you don't see it, I clicked on the set baseline. And now what I want to do is, what I want to do is cancel that. I want to go set baseline. I want to clear it. So I want to clear the baseline. Because right now, just before I do that, if I go to the variance screen, if I go to the variance screen, see how it has dates here? Well, when you do a new file, it will not have any dates here. All right. This project, I've saved a baseline. You know what? I'm saying I made a mistake. I shouldn't have saved it yet. Right. So I'm going to, what I want to do is save or set the baseline. Save the baseline, set the baseline. It means the same thing. So the Microsoft project, they used to call it save baseline, and then they switched at a certain point. So I'm still in the habit of calling it save, but it's the same idea. You're setting it, you're saving it, it's going to remember it. But I don't want it, I want to clear it right now. So to clear it, you just go set baseline, clear baseline, and then it says clear baseline, right? Plan, and you pretty much pick the default and click OK. And now you see how this says NA, not applicable, not applicable. So now it's like we've got a plan. So we've worked out our plan for this project. We've created a resource table for this project. So if I slide down the left side, I can see my resource sheet. I've got some work, I've got some costs, I've got some materials. This is like what we did practice in the lab last week. And if I go to my, actually, if I check here, I've assigned costs to each of these resources so I can see the cost. But notice there's no baseline, right? There's no baseline, there's no actuals, right? And the remaining cost is whatever the cost is, because that's the total. So I see that there's no baseline cost. So that tells me I've not saved this as a baseline, not set the baseline yet. So I'm going to slide to the left again, and I'm going to go to the Gantt chart, set baseline. And so there it is. What I usually do when I set the baseline is I make sure that I'm in the variance screen because I like to see it. I like to see it. Also, just one more note. I click on the square icon box, right click, go to the cost screen. You see here, no baseline, right? No baseline. Now, when I set the baseline, it's going to copy all of those costs and it's going to paste them there. So as soon as I set the baseline, it's going to copy them there. It's going to paste them there. When I go to the variance screen, it's going to copy these and it's going to paste them. It's going to copy these and it's going to paste them there. So let's try that. I'm going to
Hello,
go,
sir.
yes.
For the startup file that you posted for Lab 4, do we have to like insert those columns? Like, because we have baseline, we don't have like baseline start, baseline finish. It's just like baseline in general.
On which screen are you in? So are you
Like
in
I'm
the,
in the Gantt chart. Like if you go to variants, it's just like we don't have those baseline start, baseline finish. We just have like the baseline.
can you share your screen for a minute?
Unfortunately, I'm doing Zoom on this like one computer, and I'm doing it like my
Oh, okay.
on the
Because
other. Sorry.
because if you're in the
Yeah, like I opened up just to like check it out, and it says like I can do set baseline, but when I click it, it puts in it just like says baseline. It doesn't say a start or finish.
but I guess what screen are you in? Like if I click here and you're in the actual Gantt chart, so you're in the entry screen, right?
Yeah.
So now if you click here, square icon, and you go to variants
Yeah.
and you pull this all the way along, do you see baseline start and baseline
Oh,
finish?
sorry, you're right. I do invariance. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Okay.
a screen. You know what? One of the reason, oh yeah, one of the reasons I'm flipping back and forth, and it probably, drives some of you crazy, but one of the reasons I kind of do that is, as I said in the first class, you know what? Once you figure out the screens and the tables, then things really start to come together for you. But unfortunately, you know what? It takes I'd say it takes about 8 weeks of doing this for it to start to feel comfortable. You know what I mean? Like it takes a
Yeah.
little while to get to know where you're at. Sometimes even when I'm teaching a lab and I go to a student's desk and sometimes they'll customize their columns, I sometimes get a little disoriented myself. So I know it's a little bit tricky, but definitely just number one, to move you along on that path or everybody along on that path, the square icon box, just remember it brings you to a bunch of screens, but the screens are not all the screens, right? Like I don't see the resource sheet over here. So it's not over here. So if I want to go to the resource sheet, I've got to go to the left and it brings you to a series of different screens. So there's two real areas fundamentally that you can access all the screens at the left and at the square icon box. And so then what you got to get used to is what's under the square icon box and what's under the left side clicking for the selections. That's part of it, right? But at least if you know these are the two ways, you can always look, oh, resource sheet's not here. It must be over here. Okay, there it is, right? So you've already narrowed that kind of stuff down. So the next thing is figuring out, well, what screen am I looking for? And I've been sort of contemplating this the last little while. Like Microsoft Project, it can do a lot of stuff. The question is, do you need to know everything that it can do? Like Excel can do a lot of stuff. Do you need to know everything Excel can do? No, you need to know what it can do for you if you're doing an estimate or if you're using it for some other purpose. You don't necessarily need to know how to do all these fancy macros and uh, present value calculations and mortgage calculate if you don't do that, right? So I'm trying to sort of hone in on the most things that I think, and then there's things that are nice to know, but maybe not as important. So that's part of it. But definitely all of this, like everything that we're doing, everything we've done up to now, it's really important for us to track a project. But there are other things, and occasionally you'll ask me something and it'll be like, I don't even know myself because I've never really had to use that. So I had Robert was asking me last week on something that kind of bugged me that I didn't know what it was. So I spent a little bit of time trying to figure it out. But at the end of the day, do I really need to tell you all? Because that's just another thing for you to try to remember and maybe you don't need it, right? But definitely experiment and stuff like that. So I don't want to put anybody off. Those of you that really want to dive into it, it's really cool. A lot of the things you can do with it. But at a certain point, you got to say, well, what's going to give me the best return on my investment for my time and effort? This certainly will, because the only reason we should schedule is to have a plan, right? And then, as I've told you all along, if we're doing the plan, it never goes the way we thought. So this is where we can see how far off course we're going and understand how far off course. And this is all about cost control here too, as compared to cost reporting. All right, we're just this far along, we're off this much. What do we do now to get ourselves back on track? Or we're going along and you've got more information about your project and you start thinking, you know, I think we could finish this a few days early if we did this and this a little differently than we planned, because now you have a little bit better knowledge. As you get closer to the work, you have better knowledge. That's just the way it is. You know, if I tell you about the final exam right now and what's going to be on the final exam, you don't even know some of the stuff that I'm telling you. But as we get a little bit more into it and a few weeks out from it, as I sort of detail that in, then you're getting more of where you got to hone in on stuff for the exam. You'd have a better understanding of that. That's the same thing with everything, with projects, everything. So this is what we're actually getting into, the weeds over here with the updating process. So we're going to set the baseline. All right, set the base. But it was a good question. I'm glad you asked. And if you get lost on something like that, just let me know, because it could be just the screen and it takes 2 seconds and then, oh, okay, now it makes sense. So set baseline, entire project. Now this, I don't care if you want to make a note of this or just try to remember. If you're doing like a lab assignment where I'm making you update, or your major project where you're updating, you are wasting your time if you don't set the baseline. So if you do this lab assignment, and some of you will, but that's okay, you'll learn from it. You'll go through all the updates, you'll put in all the updates, and then you'll go to check the variance, and then you'll say, I got no variance. Why do I have no variance? And I'll tell you why. You never set the baseline. So it can't measure the difference if you didn't tell it what the benchmark was that it's measuring against. So you always, once you're finished the plan and you're happy with all the costs that are applied, then you set the baseline, right? If you forget to set the baseline, you're going to do the updates, and really it's like you're still working on the plan. It's not going to show you the variances. You're not going to see the differences. So you only have to do that once or twice, and then you get fed up, because then you kind of have to go back to zero everything out like I just did and go back, set the baseline, and then put it all back in, which is annoying. So you only have to do that once, and that'll get you there, right? So set baseline. It doesn't take long.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
Which page did you zero out on again? You're showing the sheet, did you zero out?
I zeroed these out.
Yeah, on which sheet?
Oh, task. So I just selected what I wanted to zero out, and I clicked 0.
Okay, all right, thanks.
You could select all and click 0, it'll do it for you.
Yeah, but you only zero out the top ones, right?
Yeah, but if I had a situation where I had like 60% of this all done, I could just select everything. The ones that are zeroed out, they're already zeroed out, but it would zero out everything else.
Okay.
But yeah, if I want to just select 2 or 3 to zero out, then I can do it that way too. And remember, this is just practice we're doing here. So, if it's a little bit different than mine, no worries. So back to, if I'm not careful, I'll forget to set the baseline after all that. I've done that before. Okay, so project, set baseline. Okay, and go to set baseline and click OK. And now you should see that. So I'm in the variance tab. This should not say NA. This basically copied this and pasted it there, copied this and pasted it there. So these dates are the same, and these dates are the same. For now, they're going to change. Okay, so this is the plan. And then this is what's going to be going on, replanning or what actually gets done. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, so I've set the baseline. I'm going to determine what's my status date. And the status date is the date that you update the schedule to. So maybe I'm going to try and make it 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to try to get a few more activities in on this. So I'm going to update this to, let's see. Yeah, I'm going to update this to the March, that Friday there. So I'm going to go status date. So you see this under the project tab. Under the project tab, I'm going to click on status date. I could click status date here, or I could go to project information and you see status date over here. I tend to like to do it over here because when I do it in the other one, for some reason, everybody changes the start date. So it's the status date, not the start date. The status date is the date we are updating the project to. So I click on that and I am going to go to that March 12th, select that, March 12th, and I'm going to click OK. Now, it put a line for you here only because I put that line in before in that file. It does not put that line automatically. I like that line to show though. So status date should say March 12th, 2021 or 21, right? And normally, like when you do the lab assignment 4, you'll need to insert the status date line. And to insert that status date line, you right click in this open area, you go to grid lines. And there's a million different ways that you can customize things and put different lines and different things. One of the ones I like, if you pull down, you'll see it says status date. Status date. And it won't show a line, you've got to pick a line. So let's actually change the line, maybe just so it looks a little different. Usually I put a solid line, but let's just make sure you're in the right spot. Put the dash line, and then you select a color, all right? So then you select a color. Usually I select red so it stands out, right? So there's your red. If you forget to put a line, it won't show up. Even though you selected this, you won't see anything. So you got to remember to pick a line because otherwise it'll stay blank. So I'm going to click OK. And now it's got that little dash line. I kind of like the solid line better. You can hardly see the, at least on my screen, I can hardly see the dashes, but maybe I'm going to go back now and make it a solid line just so that everybody's comfortable with that. So right click, grid lines. You have to pull this down. Status date, let's make it a solid line. Okay, so that's giving you nice, clear status, a date line. Some people just put the status date, but I like to see the line. I kind of learned that from Elliston. That's how they like to do it, that they'd have a nice solid line illustrated. So I thought that was a good idea. So we've got that. Now that means that we are going to be, and this is just for, you'll find we'll use these drawing tools later on when we get into change orders. They can be really helpful. I'm going to just right now grab an arrow just so that we can visualize this a little bit better. So that means that right now we're looking from the status date backwards. Right now, we don't care about forward. We just care about backwards. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, Save As. And I'm going to call this one job number 121. So job number 121, bathroom. Update. And I'm going to say March 12th, 21. So I'm just going to name it job number 121, bathroom update, March 12th, 21. We'll talk about file naming protocols at a certain point, but for now, I'm just calling it that, and that's the update. So this is going to be our update file, right? It's different than our original start point file, but it is now our update file. So I want to look at all of these, and we're pretending that today is March 12th. It has to be at least March 12th, right? So it has to be at least March 12th. I can't be updating for next week or next month or 3 months from now. It has to have happened, because how would I know? I never know what actually happens until up to that date. That's what the status date is. So I'm going to go to the tracking screen. So far, we've looked at the entry screen on this. We've looked at the cost screen. We've just started to look at the variance screen. Going to look at the tracking screen. We're going to be looking at the usage and work screen, but not today.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you just quickly go over how you got the grid line again? I keep trying to do it, but it does it for all the tasks. And I'm just wondering how you got it for specifically the start date of the permit approved. Or how you got just the single line from
this line here?
Yeah.
So so the status date line, you right click to grid lines.
Mm-hmm.
You pull this down.
Okay.
That's the trick. You got to pull it down. Otherwise, you don't see it.
Yeah,
right?
I didn't.
And then you click there, and then you got to make sure you pick a solid line.
Okay.
And then pick a color.
Okay. All right. Thank you,
And
sir.
then you got to click OK as well. If you don't click OK, it won't keep it.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, no problem. So we've got we've got all of these activities. So we're looking to the left of the status date. We're going to click on here. We've looked at the cost, the entry so far in the course. We started to look at the variance. We'll be looking at that a lot today. We're going to go to the tracking. And the tracking is where you can put in your actual starts and your actual finishes. So for example, if, let me just move this thing out of the way. If we started this, we were supposed to start this on February 3rd and finish on March 3rd. So we could say that this activity here, submit, we didn't start till February 4th, right? And we could say we didn't finish it till March 5th. So I put in 2 dates there, and then it put a solid bar because it's finished. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is procurements, right? So we could say that this started on time, but it took 24 days, right? Took 24 days to complete, and it's done. So then I could go to the task tab and I could just click 100, or I could type 100 here, you know? So either one, I could type 100 here, press enter, and I'll mark it as done. So that's another way of doing it. Okay, so then, and remember, I'm looking at everything to the left here. So I'm looking at everything to the left here of the status date. So usually what I do is I do my oddball things that are impacting the project first, and then I update the rest. That's usually the way I do it because I find it's a little bit faster. So like maybe rough in HVAC. Maybe rough in HVAC did not start yet. You know, they did not start yet. They didn't come, right? And so because they didn't come, I'm on the phone with them and trying to figure out what's going on because we're right here, right? They were supposed to come on Friday and they didn't show up on Friday. So I'm going to say, I've talked to them on the phone. They are supposed to come on Monday, right? And before I do this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to insert the indicator column. So I'm going to go right click on this top column here, right click, and I'm going to go insert column, and I'm going to type I for indicator. And that puts that indicator column. Remember, the indicator column shows you when you've added a note, shows you when you put a constraint, shows you if you put a special calendar on something. It shows you all these things. And so usually that's one of the first places I look at when I'm looking at one of your, you know, if Sanjay said, oh, I've got a problem, and I say, share your screen, one of the first things I want to see is the indicator column, because I want to see if he's added a constraint, added a special calendar, what's going on with it, said it's done, that kind of stuff. So I usually want to get that kind of information. So it's very helpful column to see what's going on. Now, I think I would have said to you in one of the earlier labs, you try to avoid putting constraints on activities, but this is one example where it would be okay, all right? Because we're gonna update the rest of the stuff that's before it anyways, but I do try to avoid constraints. So you're gonna see me put a constraint, or when I do this next move, it puts a constraint. So I'm very cautious about this. But again, it's not a bad tool in the program. So you see the move? Well, they didn't show up. So because they didn't come here, it doesn't mean we don't need to have an HVAC system, right? They need to come, they need to do that. So that just means it's got to be done at a different time. So the question is when? 1 day from now, 1 week from now, 4 weeks from now. Custom, you could say however many days from now you want. A quick one, if they, you know, it's Friday and they say they're going to come Monday, then basically I'm going to say incomplete parts, and it moved it to Monday. But it does put that little box, which is a constraint. So it's saying they can't start any earlier than Monday. Well, guess what? It's Friday. So yeah, they're not gonna be able to start any earlier than Monday anyway. So that's fine. That's one of the exceptions. I try to avoid these where possible, especially in the original plan, especially in the original plan. Does that make sense?
You go, so sorry, you go to move and then you click what?
Move and incomplete parts to the status state.
Okay.
So then, because before, maybe I'll just click undo. Okay, so just get this over here again. I clicked it twice. Rough in HVAC. So you see how it's on the Friday? They didn't show up. It's Friday night. That's about the best time to update the schedule, right? I'm going to say they're going to come on Monday. I could pick any time. So just so you know, like I could go custom, and then it wants to know how many days, right? I could say they're coming next Friday, so I could select 5, so on, right? But I selected incomplete parts to the status date. Of course, that only works too if you pick the status date like we picked, right? We made this March 12th our status date. So we put it in the system. This program knows that this is our status date. If you don't do that, it's not going to move it the right way. So we did that part. So that's what allows that. All right, and that's become critical, but it doesn't look like it delayed things anew, but it did become critical. So that's showing that. And then maybe even this one, and I'm not sure if I showed you this. I'm going to go to task. We'll see. Sometimes this causes a problem, but we'll see. So I'm going to go to the task tab, and you see this little one that looks like a break. split task. You can split the task and then click the taskbar you want to split, right? So does everybody see that? Okay. That little one, I'm in the task tab. It looks like a broken task. Okay, so I'm going to click that. You should see that. Click to insert a split task. I'm going to try and click it. I can see where it, if I slide along here, it tells me days, right? Wednesday, Thursday, etc. So where it says Tuesday, I'm going to click that and move it a day. So you see how it split it? Well, in construction, unfortunately, this stuff happens too. The carpenters show up one day and then they're away a day. They're somewhere else. I don't know where they are, but they're somewhere else. If there are people, we know because we put them somewhere else. In this case, there are people. But if it was a subcontractor, those of you who've worked in construction, have you ever had that happen? A trade shows up, they're there 2 days, and then all of a sudden they disappear 2 days, right? Happens. So if you want to illustrate that, you could just split it. This is also handy too. If this was an outdoor project and you had bad weather and you weren't able to work, you could split it to show that you weren't able to work. And then you could put a note to say which day you weren't able to work. So that can be helpful too. I'll also show you later on in the course how you can create a bad weather day summary task at the end of a project and track them so that you can keep track of it overall. So at the end of a project, you could say we had 45 bad weather days. Why is that important? Well, in your contract, you may have had a weather calendar that allowed for 30 bad weather days. Well, if you end up with 45 bad weather days, that means that you can get an extension of 15 days to the contract. Typically, you don't get extra money, but if it was liquidated damages on the contract, you get freed up of the liquidated damages. So you're not accountable for them because that was outside your control. So it can get quite intricate on those types of projects that way. But the tool that you can use to show something didn't happen is the split. Okay, so I'm just gonna maybe save this for now. So we've got that. So now I'm gonna say the rest of the stuff here is the way it ran. So to just quickly update everything, because you notice I didn't even update that milestone. The permit approves not checked off. I would just click this because all my dates where everything is now looks good to me. This is what's gone on. So I'm just going to click the square icon box. It selects everything. That way I don't have to worry about missing anything. And then I'm going to just click on mark on track. See that mark on track? And then it just fills in all the rest of the dates for me. That's why I said I usually fill in all the oddball ones, the drivers that push everything. Then I look at it, what's left. I'm good with those dates. And then I just select mark on track once I've selected everything. And what that does is it looks at everything to the left of the status date. Mark on track looks everything to the left of the status date and we'll just update it up to that point and complete it. Now in this particular case, everything is 100% complete, but if this one crossed here, then it would calculate, it's 67% or it's 80% or whatever it is, it would calculate it for you. So it's not like you got to figure out what percent is done up to that point. Okay. And sometimes I do find that it gets a little silly, the program. Don't ask me why. But you do get some of these things where this will say 99 and you're wondering, well, why isn't it saying 100%? I don't know. You got me on that one too. That's sometimes just the quirkiness of Microsoft Project. Like I said, I think in the first class, I think at some point you're going to see somebody that makes a better scheduling software than Primavera or Microsoft Project. Both of them have their issues, but they're both the dominant programs in the industry. Okay, so that would be our update. Now, do you know how well we're doing with this? Hey, Nav, did you get everything? Are you okay? And I see a note there, so just checking. That's a while back, I guess. I guess you guys are okay. All right. So if I want to see how we're doing, I'm going to slide to the left. I'm going to right click. And I'm going to go to my tracking Gantt. Very helpful, very visual. Tracking Gantt. I'm going to click on the square icon box. And I'm going to go to variants. And remember, the bottom bar is the plan. That's your baseline. And the top bar is either what's actual or what has changed, what the new plan is. Right? So it's either actual or what's been moved because of what's actual. But the bottom bar is the baseline. So remember that the bottom bar is the baseline. Now, you don't see the status date line. That's because we switched screens. So we've switched screens, right? So in this screen, you have to put the status date line again. Once you put it in the tracking Gantt and you have it in the Gantt chart like you already did, then when you switch back and forth, it stays. But the first time you're in the file, you have to insert it in both screens. It'd be kind of nice if you just inserted it in one, it didn't matter what screen, but that's the way they do it. So you can just, it's easy. This is practice for you again to remember how to do this because it's so easy to forget this stuff, right? Right click, grid lines. By the way, if you don't like right clicking with your mouse, you could always go to format, grid lines, same thing, right? Format, grid lines. Brings up the same box. So whether you do it in this, I just find it's quicker in this blank area to right click and pick it, but whatever way works for you is fine. The next thing is to remember to pull this down. Click status date. Click solid line. And click red. Solid line, red, status date, grid lines. Click OK, and there it is. Now for some of you, sometimes I find when I do some things, the line disappears. It's only because of my video card. Sometimes it needs to refresh the screen. If that ever happens and you want it to show up again quickly, you know, if you just enter like one letter in an empty cell, press enter, it will show up again. It regenerates the screen. So I think it has to do with your video card. So some people it probably does it more for than others. Okay, so this is where we've updated to, and you can see that this is a little bit darker, right? So these have been updated. You will not see anything red to the left of the status date because once it's updated, it's done. Once it's done, it's not on the critical path because you can't move it. This is another little bit of advice. Some of you may get frustrated. You know, if I mark this as complete and then I start changing dates on this, it'll push these, but it won't push this because you said this is complete. So once you mark something ahead as complete, you got to be careful because then things behind it will just push out past it, right? So you got to watch out for that. That's all. It might be true and it might be okay. You just got to be careful. Is that what you want? It's these little things that can be annoying. Okay, so we got that. Now I can see. Good. We're 3 days behind. And what I would do is I would put a note for each one of these, right? So this is where the discipline comes in. When you update, you want to know what happened. Why did we start 1 day late, right? Client change delayed submittal by 1 day, and error in drawings required an extra day, 1 extra day. So that's why this is 1 day late and it took 1 day longer, right? The 1 day caused it to here and then something made it take 1 day longer. There you go. There's your reason. Procurement, we could also, for the procurements, we could say like we did yesterday that the procurements, the plumbing sub failed and did not sign on. We needed to procure new plumbing sub. So an extra 2 days. So we're just putting notes on everything. I don't think I need to do that for everything to show you, but you get the idea, right? So I would say this, you know, this is our own forces, the carpenters. Why did we wait a day? I would explain that. So that would take us from the 2 to 3 days. And then the rest is just things pushing off, right? So that's where our variances are. So I would continue to put those notes in, and then I would also check my costs. So we've got the variance in time. And now we've got a variance in cost. It looks like $112 in pre-construction and $324 in construction. A little different than what we did yesterday because we had different updates, right? So that's where we've got our variance in our costs. What we're going to do is then we're going to look at that. So we know we got 436 variance. So that's fine. We've saved it. We're done with the update. Now I'm going to go File, Save As. And this is where it's kind of easy to do the next save. I would keep all of this the same, except the only thing I'm changing is one word. I'm calling this recovery. And the reason I put a number here is if I keep this all in one folder, it will organize itself in that folder. So if you could imagine, if I had a project that was 24 months long, if I have one folder for that project, I would have the first update. If I had it sorted by numerically, it'd be number 1. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for every month. It'd be nice and clear. I could go into any month very quickly. I could find it very quickly and it'll be there. So it's very nice to have a file naming protocol for that. And that makes it very, very helpful to track it. So I'm going to save that. And I've got that there. Okay. So now this is my recovery. So I'm no longer looking backwards. We're shifting gears. We're being proactive now. I'm looking forward. So I'm looking forward. So this is where we use the direct method to get the time back, right? So the direct method is detect. What's the D? What are we doing with the D, with the detect? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to do, Braden, with the D of detect in the direct method?
Not sure.
We're looking along the critical path. So we're going to detect along the critical path opportunities to save time. So that's the D. Because you know what? It doesn't help us to shorten this one, right? Like it's not going to help us at all to shorten this one. Well, number one, how are we going to shorten it? It's only one date, but on a real bigger schedule, shortening that's not going to help us, right? It's not going to shorten the rest. So I've got to look along the critical path, like shortening this is not going to help us at all. And then the I is what? Anybody remember? The I is immediate. I want to try to get it somewhere in this. This is a short project, okay? But I want to try to get it maybe in this zone. I don't want to get it in this zone. Because you know what? Something else is going to happen. And if I take out any flexibility, you know, if I make cleanup one day now instead of 3 days, then I've taken out any flexibility later on in case something else happens. So you look immediate, sooner rather than later. The R in direct is to reduce. We're looking for the no or low cost solution. This is a cost control course. So we're looking to try to minimize our variance, right? So we're trying to stay on budget. So that's the R. Now the I, immediate, and the R, they work together. And as I said from the beginning of the course, time and cost, they interact a lot. And that's the nice thing. You kind of really, using this as a tool, you can really kind of visualize how that works together. And so then the E is what we're going to do now, experiment. I don't know. I'm not sure right now. I'm going to experiment and see what's possible with what I know about construction, what may be doable. And through that, if we get some solutions, then we're going to look to see commitment of who we need to do something. If we don't get their commitment, we're lost. You know, so we can do all the experimenting we want. If they don't agree to it, we're lost. And if we do that on an ongoing basis, it's going to help our team be a lot more confident and proactive, collaborative, less adversarial, strong relationships, etc. So they all tie in. It helps to build that positive circle of influence that I mentioned yesterday. Okay, so let's take a look at this. And if I go to my let's go to the entry screen. So I've got my days here. Sometimes you might even want to put in your total variance. So you could insert column. You could put in your T for total, where is it? No, not total variance. That's not what I want. I want insert column, cost variance. That's what I want, cost variance. So I can see the cost variance on the screen. So I got an idea. And so I'm going to look at this, and we were what, 3 days behind? Is that right? So I'm looking to get 3 days back. So again, it's just flipping between screens, right? Click the square icon, right click, variance. Click the screen, entry. All right. So looking along the critical path, you know what I'm thinking? And like yesterday, so I'm not going to make this overly complex. I just want you to get sort of the ideas down. But like yesterday, certainly I can shorten the inspections to 1 day instead of 2 days. Now I'm going to put a note. Get commitment of subs for inspections on March 17th. So I'm already working on the C and the direct. All right, so I've shortened this by 1 day. Okay, and then I'm still looking through this. And I've got 1 day here, I got 1 day there. And like I did before, you know what? Maybe I can shorten this by a 2 days. Let's do that by 2 days. Install the drywall in 1 day, tape it in 3 days. Maybe at the end of the 1 day, we can put 1 coat on it. So we can probably get that done there. All right, so I've shortened that by 2 days. Okay, so I've shortened that by 2 days, which is excellent. And look at this. 1,336. Maybe even if I shortened it by 1 day, 612 to the plus. When it was at 6 days, I'm out money, right? Still, but only 112, not that much. So I'll try 4 days more realistic. So I'm also seeing an opportunity here. I'm seeing an opportunity here with this, right? So install ceramic tile. What did I end up with here? No. I thought we were, oh yeah, it was this one. I got it 6, right? So it was 4 days, this one, right? That's where we were. So that's at 4 days. So we dropped that 2 days. So now if I go and I check my variance, I'm back to 0 days, right? My project is back on track. So I'm going to finish at the same time. My cost is now, I'm saving $1,336. Now, the question is, how am I saving that? I don't get it. I brought it back, but I also, like, I'm not shorter in time. So how is it cheaper? Does anybody have an idea how it's cheaper? Because that could be confusing to figure out, right? Well,
Is it because you reduce the days, sir?
I did
The amount of
reduce
days they work.
Go ahead, Sanjay.
Is it because you reduce the amount of day they work, so you save on
But really,
cost?
yeah, so I've reduced the amount that I had those trades working on those days. So they're definitely saving $800 right there, right? So I'm reducing the work that I had them there doing that. And the other area, because we're actually, 1536 cheaper, is I'm going to be reducing the amount. If I go to assign resources, I can see that I assigned to construction the site super 50%. So I'm saving basically 1 day on the site super's cost because this is 2 days shorter, right? And where we lost the time was up here. And the site super, we didn't assign up here. We only assigned the site super down here. So when we save days here, we save more than up here. Because up here, we only had the pre-construction. We only had up here, we only had assigned the PM 10%. So when we lose a day or two up there, we don't lose very much. You know how the PM had to go get another plumber for the thing, and they had to deal with the client being late. So it was a very small amount that we were losing up there. But when we gain time back here, we gain lots of money on a per diem basis. So again, I'm getting down back to there's certain costs per diem that we can make lots of really good savings, or we can lose lots of money by taking longer if we've got a lot of people there on the site for an extra day. So that is helping us dramatically improve our budget. Like we are ahead of budget now on this with this new plan. And that's the other thing I'm saying is the original plan, it was okay, to have the original plan the way we did. And then we have a little bit of flexibility when things start to go our way or we see an opportunity to capitalize on it. We should capitalize on any opportunity to save money that we get, because there's going to be the times where we are missing. So cost control is all about seizing opportunities. And then that's going to balance out with the times we missed stuff or it took a lot longer, all the VUCA stuff that we were talking about. So we got to be kind of proactive on those opportunities too. Some projects though go really, really smoothly and nicely. And if we're capitalizing all the way along, we can beat those budgets. Other ones, it's just like playing cards. You know, we made the right decisions perhaps, but the probabilities aren't 100% and things did not go our way. But we can mitigate and minimize the potential for losses. All right, so I'm going to go back because I want to check this out a little bit more, Sanjay. To your point, I want to go to the resource sheet. So I'm going to slide to the left and go to the resource sheet. And I like getting you used to checking the cost tab over here. And so we can see the variances here, right? So we're pretty much winning on all of them at this point. I know for sure before, if you go back, because remember, we've got that update file. You could always open the update file and see what were we at. And then you can look at the variance file and say, oh, on the update file, we were this. Now on the recovery file, we're that. You could see the difference from file to file. So you could always look back. That's why we save it at different points in time. That's why we had the update file. We could see how much we're behind on dollars. We could see how much we're behind on time. We could look at and see how much over each resource is. And then with this new plan, we could compare. So we have those comparisons to see. So now we know that we are $800 with this new plan under budget for our carpenters, our site super, and even our PM. Because when we save time, we had the PM also assigned. If we click here to the construction part, we also had the PM assigned, I think 15%, 15%. So when you save 3 days over here, that's saving 15%. When you lose 3 days over here, that's only at 10%. So that's why PM is actually under budget too now. Whereas before the PM was over budget because this part took longer when we did the update, as well as this part. So you see what's going on step by step. And of course, put a note. I would put a note and I would say, you know, confirm with drywall. Well, this is our own people in this case, because I think I assigned the carpenters, ensure Durabond 90, sheetrock 90, whatever you want to call it, used to speed up taping and shorten to 4 days. It's just getting you to think in a certain way. It's not that, you know, we're looking for every single penny and driving ourselves nuts, but it doesn't take that long when you really start thinking that way to look at opportunities for savings and to try things and see what's real, what might not be so real just because of how we apply things, because there are some nuances to this. But if you think in these terms, you're going to be very effective at managing projects and seizing opportunities. And also getting things back on track. And you'll be much more kind of cool about it because you have a process to follow. So that's really what it's about that way. And you know what, like I said, this is going to take a few weeks to really sort of settle in, but that's okay. That's okay. Day by day, bird by bird, as they say. Are there any questions? Okay, now, so, and for those of you that, you know, it's like, oh, you showed us so much, how am I going to remember this stuff? I have Microsoft Project tutorials. I have video links to them, right? Tutorials 5 and 6 shows you how to update and recover, right? So tutorials 5 and 6 are very helpful for this week's lab. So if you want to save time, oh, I can't do this until he updates the live lab. No, I would just look at Microsoft Project tutorial 5, tutorial 6. If it's something that you can't remember from before that, likely in tutorials 1 to 4. But really this week is kind of focusing in on 5 and 6. So, you know, if you want to cut to the chase on that. Okay. And of course you can, you know, fast forward to what it is you want within the tutorials. So this week's lab, what you're going to do is you are going to use the start point file that I've loaded. It's called, I think, Lab 4. Let me make sure what the name is here. Let me just check. So we'll go here, lab assignments. Yeah, I called it Lab 4 MS Project Start Point file. That's what you start with. So you don't have to do anything. You just start with that file, right? So you don't have to enter all the activities and all the stuff. And don't use the one from last week. There's a few things that are different in it. This is a good start point file. It's got all the costs, everything already in it. So in this assignment, we saved the file as a baseline schedule. Save or set, right? So set and save, they mean the same thing, right? So that means you got to go to the project tab, click set baseline, select for the whole project. Make sure you do that. All right, to a status date while documenting the causes of any delays in the notes. Once we complete the updates, we save the file, and this is what you can call it. 1 November 3, 2021, office remodel update. Then once everything is updated, then we will resave the file, renaming it, and with the only word we're changing is this, right? Recovery, just like we just did, same idea. Then proceed to recover the time while documenting with notes who we will need to shorten or change their time requirements. Apply the direct method to the recovery. Detect along the critical path, immediate, reduce, experiment, commitment, team. And if you don't know what the direct method is, if you look at the video lecture 4A and 4B, or the slides from yesterday, it should help you. So this is what I want you to specifically do. Rename the start point file, save set the provide assignment to the start point as a baseline. Make sure you do that. I'm just trying to save you time here, right? Make sure you do this or you will not see any variances in the update. And then you gotta kind of go back and start again. And the problem is you might not see it till you've done a bunch of updates. Enter, but even that's still going to take you 10 or 15 minutes. Enter a new status date. All right, so status date, we go to the project tab and we select status date. I make sure it's the right year, right? So make sure it's the right year and display the status date on the Gantt chart. Right, and if you want to display it, remember, right click, grid lines, pull down the status date, make sure you put the solid line, make it red. And then you're going to go update the following activities. So to update them, go to the tracking screen. Go to the tracking screen and put actual start and actual finish dates, right? And then you can always check what the variance is by going to the variance screen and seeing what the variance is. Do the next for the plumbing. And HVAC, I think I only get you to, well, I got a start date. No, plumbing, I only get you to put a start date because it doesn't quite finish. It crosses the status date. Rough and electrical, put in the start and finish date for it. And then update the rest of the activities, mark on track. Now you kind of evaluate, you know, how much behind schedule is the project. Click save. Select the save as, rename the file, recovery. And now you get to figure out how you want to get it back And in this example, I want you to get the variance back exactly to 0. Check what the variance is in cost and just put it in a note in the last activity. Then you can upload both files under the Lab4 drop-off. So I'll see one as update and I'll see one as recovery. And that's it. It looks like it's more than it is. If you just go step by step, it probably wouldn't take more than 20 minutes. If you're not sure and you got to go back and forth and that sort of thing, because it's new to you, it might take you a couple hours, which is fine, but I don't think so for many. And I'm going to take a break and I'm going to come back from the break in about 10 minutes. And if you've got questions and that sort of thing, then I'm going to try to help people if they have any questions. Oh, how do you do this? How do you do that? Just so everybody is clear though, the start point file, maybe I got to open it. Okay, I'll open the start point file. The start point file should look like, I'll just gotta close this guy. Can you guys see it now?
Yeah.
So just so we know, that's the start point file. And just like I said, don't use the one from last week. Some of the things are slightly different, like the total cost and stuff. So use the one I've loaded called called Lab4 MS Project start point file. Okay, so I'm going to take I'll come back maybe around 10:30 or 10:35, and then people that get stuck on stuff, I'll try to help for till 11. You can also, like I said, check on the tutorials and let's see. Don't forget, I've got the help and tip sheets too at the top in Blackboard in the lab assignments. Sometimes those can be pretty quick for you to, like how to put in the status date line. Like I've got those kind of things in those tip sheets, so that can be also helpful for you too. So you got all kinds of resources, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay, I'll take a break and I'll see you guys in a few minutes. And everybody knows I've got the drop off that you can drop it off. If you're cool with everything, you're good. And I'll come back for those that want some extra help. Okay, I'm back. Anybody has questions, just so you know, just in case you got a question or something. I'm back. Hmm.
Sure.
Yeah, hi Sanjay.
Yeah, whenever you're changing the date, like you say we should change the date for install metal studs, you can, does it matter which sheet you change it on?
Yeah. So
I changed it on the variant sheet.
no. So you have to change it on the tracking. Like if you're gonna update it,
Right.
can you see my screen right now?
Yeah, I'm seeing your
Okay.
screen.
So I would go to tracking, and where it says like to put in metal studs, it says has an actual start date. So it
Right.
has to be under actual start
Oh, okay.
and actual finish. Now, you know what? You could insert these columns in any screen, but it has to be actual start and actual finish.
Yeah.
Very important. Actual start, actual finish. Okay.
All right, thanks, sir.
Yeah. Make sure when you update everybody, it's actual start and actual finish. So if anybody just came in, because I just let a couple of people in, people are working on the lab for assignment, and there's a start point file and there is the instructions. And if you missed me going through everything, then I would suggest you watch MS Project Tutorial 5 and MS Project Tutorial 6, and that should give you pretty much what you need to know to be able to do Lab 4. If you were already here earlier and you're just jumping back in, that's different than you already know. Well, I gotta figure a few things out here.
Excuse me, sir.
Yep.
Typing in the chat.
So for step number 4 for the variance and days, I'm just wondering, like, is that a column or is
Yeah,
like?
yeah. So if you put in like an actual start and actual finish, then
Mhm.
just click on the square icon box,
Okay.
right click, go to variance,
Okay.
and it should tell you if you might have to pull the screen a little bit, and it should have start variance and finish variance.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Yeah, sometimes remember if something's not showing, don't forget it might be hidden by the bar here. So sometimes you have to pull this bar to see everything. And the updating, make sure that you do in the tracking with actual start, actual finish. Means you're actually doing the work.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
For the first step, 4A, the third note, can you explain what you mean by activities of the delay?
Which one? 4A?
4A, the third.
Oh, place a note?
Yeah.
That explains the delay? Okay, so I just want you to show me that you know how to put a note,
Okay.
and you can make up whatever you want about what maybe caused the delay.
Oh, okay. Thank
All
you.
right. So I'm just trying to get you into the habit of looking at the activity, seeing that it's delayed, and then asking what caused the delay. Now, in this case, because it's kind of a fictitious project, you can make anything up you want.
All right.
When
Thank
we
you.
do the major project, and we'll have a set of drawings, and you'll be looking at them and referencing them, then you're going to be creating delays, and then I want you to have a reason for it. So I want that to be more logical.
Got it.
Sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, for that same area, the 4, 1, 2, and 3. So the part that says what was the variance in days of the start for installation partition wall?
Yes. So what was the
Um,
question? What was the variance in days? Yes.
yeah. So you go to variance
Yeah.
sheet to see that, right?
Yeah. So like if you put in actuals over here, you click
Right.
there, you right click, you go to the variance,
Variance, right?
and then you might have to pull this,
Right.
and then you're just looking at, so what's the start variance and what's the finish variance?
Oh, so you just want us to place it in a note, like what was the start variance? Okay. All right, thanks.
Again, I'm kind of forcing people to kind of go from one screen to the other, look at, like, normally that you wouldn't need to do because it's there, but I just want to know that you know where to find these things at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a brother. No.
Excuse me, sir.
Yep.
Do you mind just going over number 5 quickly? I don't know where to place the start or status date from the update tasks.
Update the rest activities up to the status date as scheduled. Yeah, okay. So you would have to do that.
Sir, I think you're muted.
Oh. Yeah. Really? Okay. Doesn't look like it.
No,
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 okay.
my volume was muted. I'm sorry.
Okay. So yeah, to update mark on track is what you want to do. So I can't really show you too much on this, but what I can say is if as long as you put in your status date and you did all those other updates, then what you would do is you would go to the task tab, select everything. All right.
Okay.
Select everything. And you know what? While you're doing that, make sure you're in the tracking screen because then you will see stuff happen. So you're going to select everything,
Okay.
right? And if you're in the tracking screen, you'll see that some of your stuff is 100% complete and a lot of it is not complete. So you select everything and then you just simply click mark on track and it should update everything to the left of the status date that you have not already updated.
Oh, okay. All
And that's
right.
it.
All right. Thank you, sir.
No problem. That's a quick way that once you've updated everything with actual starts, actual finish, and you got some stuff left, but you're happy where it's at, select all, mark on track. But don't do that ever first. Do that after you've updated all the unique ones like we just did. And then if it says number 6, how much behind you are, you just go to the variance and you look, and whatever it says, that's what you are at the end. So then you're pretty much done the update, and then you're going to do a save as and call it recovery. So then you'll end up with 2 files, an update file and a recovery file. And the recovery, you're doing the direct method to try to get whatever it's behind back on track. And then you just upload both files and you're done lab 4. Once you figured out how to get the time back in the recovery file. Okay, so I think I'm gonna call it for me unless there's any other outlying questions. And then you should be able to upload both files. I made it that you could upload multiple files for the drop off, so you should be good then. And we'll see everybody next week then.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, take it easy.
Yeah.
And if for some reason you got stuck on something, you could always drop into one of the other labs. So
Sir, before you go, just one question.
yeah.
What do you mean by so we're just supposed to make up something for B, for B that says explain the delays and the direct impact. We're just supposed to make up something just like
Yeah, whatever. You
for
can
A.
you can say whatever you think for that. I just want to make sure that you get in the habit of you know, putting a note. So you double click, just put a note beside that activity, what caused the delay.
Okay.
When we do our real project, then I'm going to want you to actually think it really through what caused the delay.
Okay, okay, all right, cool. Sir.
If it was a real project, you would know.
Yeah, yeah.
Or you would want to ask yourself why, because then that's helping you to figure out to solve it if you've got more issues coming up. Okay.
All right, sir. Thanks.
All right. Take it easy, Sanjay.
Yes,
See you
you too.
next class. See you, everybody.